Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great story about high school. Um, I was thinking that this channel, like I've got so many stories from my life I could tell that, a few years ago I could have made videos about them easily. And now I'm like resistant to tell the stories because I no longer find those stories interesting. And which doesn't necessarily mean that other people might not. And I think the reason that I don't find them interesting anymore is because I've not really, I've kind of lost interest in myself. And what I mean by that is I'm a guy who, everybody's self-absorbed. I get that. And I'm not trying to say that I probably cared more about other people than most, but when it comes to like being like a Barack Obama type person who just sits around and just thinks about himself a lot, like that was me for like my entire life. And there's nothing left to think about, I mean, I've thought about everything there is to think about. So that's why. And then some of it's just like the story that like maybe I thought was funny, when I was 20, 20 years later, it maybe just seems kind of retarded. But I'll tell the story because it's a quick one, and we'll see if anybody likes it. So this was freshman year in high school. At the time, my dream was to be a professional boxer. I've talked about this before. There was no like internet back then, right? I mean, there was, but like I actually, no, you didn't really like, it wasn't something you like used every day. And you would look some stuff. That's how I followed this stuff. What I'm about to talk about. Yes, I used the internet, but it was a completely different internet than we have now. And it wasn't like you didn't live online. And if you wanted to talk to somebody online, you didn't text with the phone. You texted over this app that, wasn't connected to your phone. Like I said, a totally different world. Anyway, so, since I wasn't on the internet and I was never really that into video games and I didn't work or like do any after school activities, what did I do? And, I didn't socialize. And I just thought about my future boxing career. Just thought of like, just fantasize, just lived in a complete world of just imagining my career. I would plan out my whole career from like like going into the gym the first time, the early fights, finding a manager, getting the title shot, winning the title, stuff like that. And I would just like go through it and I would just think about it on cycle over and over and over again. And I could keep myself entertained like infinitely doing that. It was something I was super passionate about. I wanted it so bad to be, not just world champion, but undisputed world champ, to unify the 4 major titles. And, in whatever division that I dreamed to be. Now, I would always change what division I dreamed of being. Sometimes it was welterweight, that's 147. Sometimes it was middleweight, that's 160. Sometimes it was light heavyweight, that's 175. Sometimes it was cruiserweight, which back then was 190. Now it's 200. And then often I would dream of being a heavyweight. And obviously the heavyweight thing was ridiculous. But what I was thinking was that, I mean, I guess I probably should have known this, but I didn't really understand it. I was thinking like, well, height is genetic, but I didn't understand the difference between frame sizes. So I thought if you were like 5'9", that meant that even if you were naturally really scrawny, you could just eat enough and lift weights and you could get as big as, David Tua, who was 5'9". And obviously that's not true. I didn't really understand it. So sometimes I'd imagine being a heavyweight. And although at the time this was going on, I think I was fantasizing about being a light heavyweight, if I remember correctly. But my favorite boxer was this guy from Ghana named Ike Quartey. That was the guy who, at the time, I wanted to model my style on. His name was Bazooka. His nickname was Bazooka because of his jab, which is, if you see it, it's one of the best jabs of all time. It's just like so hard and so fast. And, you know, so he was, and then he was, that weekend that had just passed, he had fought my least favorite fighter, Oscar De La Hoya, who I hated. And, he had lost a very controversial decision. The fight really could have gone either way. I don't know if the judges got it right or not, but you know, whatever, it happens. I don't think there was anything wrong with the decision, although I was pretty upset about it. And but you know, the reason I bring this all up is just to tell you kind of like where my mind was. I was somebody who's thinking about fighting 24/7. Now, I've already told the story in earlier videos about my first fight. And so you can go, it's way back there somewhere. So, and that's another thing that I'd been like dreaming of redemption about. Like, no, I'm not going to say anybody cared because it was 2 years earlier. And who cared in the first place? That kid had, you know, that little midget had beaten the shit out of me back in, you know, the summer of 7th grade. But but it was something that like I still like had to like, you know, like it bothered me, and I wanted to be like, I wanted to like get it out, like, you know, I didn't want to be known for that. I wanted to like, you know, get a win under my belt. So it wasn't like I had this idea of like, I'm going to go fight somebody or anything like that. But I mean, it was definitely there in the back of my mind for a while. And then plus I was just thinking about fighting all the time because of boxing. But, so, you know, I'm a pretty moody kid, you know, and I like, I mean, high school, by senior year, things were okay, but those first 3 years of high school were tough for me. You know, I mentally was going through a lot of stuff. And, okay, fuck. There we go. Okay. So anyway, so I remember I'm walking down, like, you know, we have to go to an assembly. I don't remember which period it was or which day of the week it was, but we got to go to an assembly. And so I remember whatever class I was on the second floor, because I remember going down the steps. And then I'm in the hallway to go to the assembly, which is in the gym. You know, so they have like the bleachers pulled out. And the principal passes me and says, remove the hat, Adam. Because I was wearing like one of those, it was cold, it was winter. I was wearing one of those like, you know, those like hats. They wouldn't, a hat you don't wear for style, it's a hat you wear for warmth, you know, like covers your ears and is cotton. I don't know, I don't know what they're called. I never thought about that. I just call them hats. But, so I didn't even say anything to him. I didn't acknowledge his comment. I just took the hat off. But I remember just feeling like, shut the fuck up, man. You know, like I was just like in a mood. And so we go to the assembly. I'm sitting there alone. I have my calculator and out, because we had these calculators that you could play really primitive games on. It's called like a TI-82 or something. I don't remember. And I was playing that. I'm pretty rock solid sure I was playing this kind of game called, I don't know, it was some kind of spaceship shooter game, but I don't remember what it was called. And so that's before the assembly. Then we had the assembly. And then the way the story got told is that it was an anti-violence assembly. No, it wasn't. I remember the assembly pretty well. It was this woman telling the story of how her brother, when he was a very young man, and sometime like in late teens or early 20s, got extremely drunk and murdered somebody very close to him. I think somebody in their family. I'm thinking maybe her father. She didn't say who. And how he was doing life in prison. And then talking about all the horrible shit that's happened in prison, you know, not necessarily to him, but that he's witnessed and stuff. So the idea of the assembly was stay away from drugs and alcohol because you don't know if something like this shit could happen. Whether that actually worked on anybody, I don't know. He certainly didn't work on me. I guess it's worth a shot, right? but that's what it was at. It was not an anti-violence assembly. And so anyway, like I said, I'm there sitting there by myself, because I would frequently do that, sit by my. I wasn't somebody who would go to sit with. I know I've talked about this before. Go to sit with other people for the sake of sitting with other people. If I didn't know anybody and didn't want to talk to them, by this stage in my life, I was just staying by myself. So there's these three guys behind me, and they were like, I'm not sure exactly what was happening, but they were like, they definitely threw stuff at me once. I don't know if it was deliberate or it just hit me or whatever, but I don't know. But whatever it is, they threw me like a bag or something. I just threw it back at them. But then it happened a second time. So I turned around to the guy who had done it, who I thought had done it, which turned out it wasn't even him. And I said, "You do that one more time, and I'm going to beat you like you're my son." And the reason I said that was because that was what Ike Corte had said to De La Hoya before the fight. He said, "I'm going to beat him like he's my son." And so I turn around, and as soon as I do it, something hits me in the back of the head, which again apparently was not him. It was, but I hear him say, "Yeah, it looks like you're really going to beat me like you're my son." But what he didn't notice is that I wasn't standing down. I was putting my calculator away. I was taking it down and putting my calculator away. So then I go back, turn, and with my right hand, grab him by the throat and push him back down. And he's just laughing. He's just laughing, oh, whatever. He's about my size. And which is saying, I mean, I'm scrawny as fuck, and I was really scrawny then, so that tells you how skinny this guy was. And so I'm holding him. He's just laughing at it, but I guess I was putting enough pressure that eventually he realized he had to do something. So then he kind of turned me off, and then I pushed him, and he kind of stumbled down a couple of steps. But that was it for me, because at this point in my life, I was still too much of a coward to throw punches. So he starts throwing punches. That's over. I'm just taking shot after shot after shot till it finally gets broken up. And by the assistant principal, who was this guy who we called the Nazi. He was 6'4", and he just looked like a Nazi. And he was a prick too. I mean, he wasn't horrible. I mean, he wasn't the worst guy ever, but I never liked him. So he's the one who grabs me. Somebody else grabs the guy who was pummeling me. And so we're going down the steps, and then so everybody's looking to see who's getting carried out. And then when they see it's me, there's just these chants of the from the whole stadium of ball face. Everybody's everybody because I don't know, because it's funny, I guess, because it was me. Kind of I don't know. Anyway, so we go. I remember the Nazi principal saying, "Do you feel better now?" You could tell he was I can't believe I have to deal with this shit. All right, so we go down. We go there. We go to the principal's office. I knew I'd made a mistake, and I take total responsibility. I said, "Look, I started the fight. It was me. I didn't do it." And the thing is, because what the Nazi principal was so pissed about is if no punches had been thrown, we could have gotten away with just a Saturday detention. That would have been the end of it. And I didn't throw any punches, but I insisted on taking responsibility. I said it was me who started the fight. I did it. It should be on me. Because I just felt too guilty. I was the one who started it, so it should, I should own up to it. And but because of that, that managed to get, so the other guy didn't get suspended because of that. And I got a 3-day suspension. And so that's, where it got really rough. I had to tell my parents. I had to call my parents. When I got home from school, they weren't there, but they saw me quickly after. Then, I can't even talk about this because it gets me too angry. I really believe it's important to respect your parents. And on top of that, I really did have great parents. Like, I mean, who always loved me no matter what, always supported me no matter what. And, I was really lucky in that regard. And then even now, like the only reason, like I can't hold a job. The only reason that I'm doing this video and not sleeping on the sidewalk is because they left enough money for me that should have gone to my siblings, to at least hold me over for a while. Now, eventually, I'm going to end up sleeping on the sidewalk, but they kept it. They kept it longer than it would have otherwise been. That said, I think that I don't know. Maybe I probably shouldn't say that, but I just think that they were both fucking retards, and I really get angry when I think about some of the stuff that I had to deal with them. Um, and Now my mom actually wasn't that bad about this. Like she made me like those 3 days of suspension. She wouldn't let me stay home. She made me go to work with her, and she was somebody who like we never left the office until like 8 p.m. She was like a total workaholic. So we wouldn't be home until like after 9. But whatever. Wasn't that big a deal. But anyway, my parents. It should have been like, look, I started a fight, whatever. But they made me go back to the school to like show them where it happened and exactly what happened, which is it's such a like if you knew them, that was so typical of them. Like who fucking cares, where it fucking happened? And because the reason they wanted to know all the details is because they had a plan. I was supposed to be suspended starting that next day, but I didn't. I went to school, and the reason that I wasn't suspended that next day was because my retarded parents insisted that they get a chance to come in and talk me out of the suspension, so I don't get suspended. And they tried everything. They said like have him just take a Saturday detention every day for the rest of the year, because it was so important to them that I not get this suspension. And it's like it's such a typical example of the way that they just overreacted to shit. And then like so, and then naturally led to fights, including to a huge fight with my father, who like because my dad said, from now on when you get home you got to go and do your homework right away. And at the time I was just like, oh, okay. And okay, yeah. Then I thought about it and I was like, what, that motherfucker, I'm not gonna back down to him. So first thing I did he did tell me, when you get home you have to call me. That's because he's being a hard ass now because he's pissed at me. He was already pissed at me about other stuff. So I call him and I say, hey, I'm home. And he said, what are your plans for this afternoon? And I said, I don't have any plans. And he said, you're going to do your homework though, right? And I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, because I don't feel like it. And then he was like, oh, well, you don't feel like it. And then so it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of build up. He's like, so I don't know what we're going to do with you, like military school, blah, 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 something. I was like, okay. And he comes home and I hear him, I'm just sitting in my room reading about boxing. And, but I hear him and he would do this shit all the time. Instead of coming and yelling directly to me, he would talk to my mom on the phone and yell about, oh my God. All these years later, and the anger is so intense. Like he's gone. He's been gone for a long time, over 20 years. And all I can think about is beating the living shit out of him. I'm gonna knock his fucking teeth out. Sorry. Not really in the mood to finish the story anymore. But anyway, so he goes and it's like yells to. I would have fucking killed that bastard. I mean, I'm not just I'm break his jaw, break his fucking eye sockets. Anyway, but anyway, so he's going and screaming at my mom, like about me. It's like, well, I'm in the other room, but like, can you overhear him because he's like right next to me? Then he comes into my room and he goes, here you go, smart guy, which is like the assignment he had to pick up from school from me. So yeah, yeah. So later on, our relationship would continue to deteriorate. I would serve the suspension, which should have been over by the end of the fucking week, but it wasn't because my parents insisted on doing it that day, that extra day. So I had to do it on Monday too. And, but anyway, things went back to normal, like there, then stuff with he went back to school. Well, it wasn't that big a deal. It was a pain in the ass, but I was such a bad student anyway, it didn't really matter. About getting behind academically. It really wasn't as big a deal academically as you would have expected. So yeah, we didn't but obviously my relationship with my father continued to deteriorate. It got so bad that there was a point that year where we just stopped speaking completely. Every time he would enter a room, I would leave. And I would not say anything to him. I wouldn't acknowledge him. He wouldn't say anything to me. Finally, I was sat down. And now I'm getting pissed at my mom when I'm thinking about this. Finally, I was sat down. My dad and my mom my dad said, my mom was there. He said, how do you like the way, because I said, guys, I'm going out. I was going out on a walk. And he said, how do you feel about the way we're doing things like around here right now? And I said, good. And he said, you and I just don't talk at all? And I said, yes. And he said, and that's the way you want it? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. And, and I left. And that would have been the end of it. But my mom, again, but my mom insisted, and so then a bunch of we started talking again, and then that led to other shit down the line. Did I tell you guys this? Did I tell you guys this about it would be a year and a half later? A year and a half later, a little over, he got diagnosed with colon cancer. Now, I was told he was going to survive. I didn't know that it was terminal. Okay, they told us, my mom and my dad told us that he was expected to survive. Which was not true. It was stage 4. They told him it was going to be a few months. And although he ended up hanging around a lot longer than that. Our relationship was bad. And then after my sophomore year ended, we'd gotten, and I'd been thinking about this. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing. He got on me about some dumb shit. I was actually down here. This was down here at the time. So we kind of exchanged harsh words back and forth over something that he was sort of right. I was sort of right. It was, whatever. And so I'm sitting down here watching TV, and then he says, Ballface 8020, can you come up here for a minute? And I just exploded. I say, God damn it. And I go over to the wall that's back there, you can see, and then just punch it really hard. I mean, not hard because I'm not a hard puncher, but punch it like I just punch. And then I just start cursing and swearing, and as to telling him, and I'm like, and I just really laying into him, just basically saying and he would say after the fact, he said I wasn't even gonna yell at you. I was just gonna say let's not, the junior year is important. Let's try to do a little better, stuff like that and stuff. And I don't know. But, so I'm just there. And when I get angry, I have a tremor. So when I get angry, I start to shake and shake a lot. And so I'm up in his face and kind of leaning over, and I'm shaking. And he says, well, I hope you're not thinking about hitting me, Ballface 8020. And which I wasn't actually. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just shaking because of the adrenaline. And so we go and we keep screaming, and it's I'm still screaming at him. He was actually being pretty calm, but I remember I walked by. So it ended up I'm walking pretty far away from him. And then I say that you're responsible for all this all this psychological trauma I'm going through. You've psychologically fucked me up because I would, if it ever came to blows between us, I would kick the living shit out of you. And yet I'm still afraid of you because of how emotionally abusive you were to me when I was small. And, and, and then it's like, so what, I know that I said, you're going to beat this shit, talking about the cancer. And like, I'm not going to get what I deserve. And then he said, well, what is that? What is it that you deserve? And then I just scream out, for you to die. And, like, I mean, I think the whole neighborhood heard me. And I said, I want you in the ground. I want you 6 feet under. And, the, um, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter how that one got resolved. I mean, I went way too far, obviously, and I shouldn't have done it, and I shouldn't have said that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, like, how much of it, like, and yes, in my defense, I did not know he was dying. Okay, I can say that with all honesty. I might have ended up saying what I said anyway. I don't know. And I was immature, and I don't know. Well, that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next.